Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mary Walter Radio, the podcast. Hello, James.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good.
For those of you new to the podcast, this is our political podcast. I tried to bring stories to the table that are news stories that aren't getting a whole lot of attention because there's like these huge news stories and these other things are happening. So tonight, a story you probably heard: IRS is coming for your money. A story related to the Chinese spy balloon that I don't know if anybody, it was like a blip. So we're just going to touch on that. Um, the Taliban and Twitter, that's another story that's been running around out there because they're having all these hearings on Capitol Hill with Yoel Roth and the Twitter execs and everything, and they're just starting, and AOC's, upset. And so this is along those lines. An interesting study about white liberal women and mental health. Now, I found this so fascinating because it came out in 2020. And I just saw it again. It just resurfaced, and I never heard this the first time it went around. So my hunch is it didn't get a lot of play. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're ending up with a story broken by John Solomon from Just the News, and an interview that they did yesterday with an FBI whistleblower about the FBI and January 6th. And it's very interesting. And again, nobody's talking about it. So we're going to talk about all of those things. If you have not done so, please subscribe to the channel. Please like the podcasts. Tuesday, we do a podcast called Life with Mary Walter, and it is non-political, 7:15. You watch on Getter and YouTube live. The audio is downloaded on Apple Podcasts and Spotify within 24 hours. We try to do it. We're getting better. We're getting faster. So it's usually up by tomorrow morning, late tonight, tomorrow morning, whenever. So we're trying to get that faster. So we're doing that. I just want to thank some people. I would like to thank James A, because James A has done a bunch of memes for social media for both Life with Mary Walter and Mary Walter Radio. There's another gentleman named Ron who has done it as well, but I don't know if he watches the podcast. He has not commented, so I don't know if he's watching, but I know James A participates, and he's here with us every Tuesday and Thursday. So thank you to him. I would like to thank Pete. Pete keeps me updated. He's just constantly sending me topics and things that he thinks are interesting to talk about, and I super appreciate him for doing that. And of course, EB, who has done all of the graphics for both channels as far as branding and all of that kind of stuff. He's done everything for us, so thank you to him. And his son Zach is our #1 fan, and he watches us all the time, even on replay. So I appreciate all you guys so much. Thank you for the support. It is greatly appreciated. So if you are listening on the podcast, you're not seeing the visual. I put comments up on the screen, and people can read them. I will read them out if they are timely and have to do with exactly what we're talking about. If not, I'm just going to let them go up on the screen so as not to confuse the people who are listening on the podcasts. So one of the things is there's this weird contest that has developed to see who can get in first. Who's the first one to say, hello, I'm here? The first one in line, and clocking in at 7:02 is, why isn't it coming up? There it is. Tina Ringo, first one in at 7:02, followed by Bill at 7:05. Al with a respectable 7:05 right behind Bill. Al says, congratulations, Ringo. Tina. Bill says, I still beat you, Al. Salt in the wound. Al, yes, you did this, Bill. Yes, you did, Bill. This one I'll admit to. Tuesday was a tie. Tina says, I beat Bill and Al. I'm getting good. And he wanted to know if the intro music was James's. It's not. It's just EB, who's been helping us with branding and packaging and everything, found some copyright-free music that we could use as the intro. The song we use for the intro to Life with Mary Walter is from James's band. So if you have another James's band tune that you would like for us to use on this show, James, feel free.
Huh.
To you. Up, we lost you. Your audio's gone. Up, and now it's back and really low again. He's been having problems, so yeah. Although it could be every woman's dream. She gets to just mute a man, you know? Hey, you're back. You're back.
I know. I really had to go in and change that setting again. That's so weird.
Interesting.
Ghost
Interesting.
in the machine.
Yeah, that's well, the gremlins every now and get there.
Hmm.
Okay. So, Biden, and I'm sure you saw, and I know I'm trying to focus on news that's really falling under the radar, but I thought this was super important. Joe Biden in his State of the Union address on Tuesday promised that he will not raise taxes. People are making under $400,000 aren't going to pay a penny more in taxes, and that's a bold-faced lie. It's a lie because you're paying more in gas, which is a tax. When you're paying more for a product because of inflation, or they don't like to blame it on inflation, they want to blame that on Ukraine, on Putin, on supply chain, which is all, Putin's fault. And they make up all these excuses. But the fact of the matter is that the price of gas went up right after Joe Biden came into office. So, and before the war in Ukraine started. So it is on Joe Biden. But those are all taxes because these taxes, when you tax big corporations, they don't pay it, they tack it onto the price of their goods and services and you pay more. So those are all taxes because it's a tax on the big guy who passes that tax along to the little guy. And if you don't want to pay it, don't consume their product. That's how it goes. So, but one of the taxes, remember they said the 800, 80 some odd, 87,000 new IRS agents that were coming. And they said, no, 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 because those 87,000 tax agents, they're going after the big guys, the millionaires and billionaires in this country. Like, is every billionaire going to have their own IRS agent? Because there aren't 87,000 billionaires in the country. So is each one get their own IRS agent? Well, on Monday, the IRS proposed a new revenue procedure to crack down on the service industry's reporting of tips. So I've always tipped in cash because my feeling is it goes in your pocket and it's done. Because if a lot of times if you put it on your credit card, if the credit card charges a fee, say 10% or whatever, they happen to process that card 5%, a lot of them have a kickback, right, for their service, which I understand. Part of that comes out of the tip that you're giving to the waiter or waitress or bartender or whomever. So I always try to leave cash because that just goes in their pocket, right? And in this country, if I get good service, that's the point of tipping, which is why in this country you tend to get better service in restaurants, etc. When our friends come from Europe, they're always amazed at how attentive the wait staff is. Like the water glass is halfway down, they're filling it back up. Do you want another drink? They're really attentive. That's why, because they're working for the tip, right?
Of course.
So the Service Industry Tip Compliance Agreement called SITCA, it's a program. It's going to be voluntary at first. It's a voluntary tip reporting system in which the IRS and the service industry companies cooperate. And as part of the proposal, the IRS will give the public until early May to provide feedback on the program before they implement it. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm 99.9% sure they don't care about what anybody else thinks about it. They're implementing this program, period, end of story, full stop.
Oh, sure. Well, come on, Mary. Don't you think your tip money should go to doing your civic duty and helping our government with our vast expenses?
Paying your fair share.
Paying your fair share. Come on, that's right. You should come out of your tips. You should know you're paid so much hourly at a restaurant that obviously
Right, right.
you may or may not make should clearly go for that.
Right. And the point is, see, and everybody's like, oh, we should pay servers at living wage. Here's the problem. I know servers who in certain industries will make more in tips when all is said and done at the end of the year. They've made more than they would make by, raising minimum wage, or raising what they would make. They make more in tips, especially like the ones who work in casinos and restaurants around casinos and things like that. They make more than they would make if you raise, the quote unquote living wage and force that to be paid. That's all they're gonna get then.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
There's a set fee. You can't earn more by being better.
Right. Yeah, that's
And
crazy.
that's
That's
yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
Now they say this is not a proposal for the auditing of servers. They're not going to audit you. Yes, they say the action was a proposal for comment, not a rule, based on over a decade of feedback from restaurants and other businesses seeking the increased flexibility for their overall tax compliance on tips. This proposal is not in effect and is intended to welcome further conversation from all interested parties.
Huh.
Among the program's features, the agency lists monitoring of employer compliance based on actual annual tip revenue and charge tip data. So when you charge it from an employer's point of sale system, see, tipping cash, they'll never know. An allowance for adjustment in tipping practices from year to year. Participating employers provide the IRS with annual reports because, a small business owner has time to now prepare a separate report for the IRS. So now they're going to have to pay their tax preparer more money out of their pocket to have taxes prepared to send to the IRS to make sure they're in compliance. Because if you're not in compliance, it costs you more in fines and fees and everything else than it does to just hire somebody to do this for you. So increased price of goods and everything else, that on top of restaurants, now we're going to put this on top of them. And they're going to take that money, that fee, and they're going to pass it on to the consumers, and we're going to pay for it.
And if you don't believe that, go to a restaurant now and see what the cost of things going up has done to your bills. I mean, have you gone to a restaurant recently and had a meal? At an average restaurant, you're paying $18.
It's insane. Hamburgers are $17.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely saw places where like sandwiches were in that $12 to $18 range. I'm like, $12 for a panini or $14 for a panini?
Yep.
And I don't want to be that old guy waving my hand on the lawn, but I mean, we're not talking 50 years ago sandwiches were $5 or $6. We're talking,
Three.
Yeah, 3.
3 years ago, sandwiches were $15. Yeah, it's crazy. Al says up your volume, James.
Huh. Maybe I have to, you know what? Maybe all right, I'll be right back.
I think you're okay. I can hear you. So I don't know.
Well, I just got a text too, because I just got the same text too from a thing that said they can't hear me over the airwaves.
Oh, all right. Well, goodbye. And you can come back. Okay. All right. So he's going to go. He'll come back. All right. So now, they're going to they're also participating employers will provide the IRS with annual reports, as I said, but they're also going to receive protection from liability related to rules that define tips as part of an employee's pay. And they're going to have the flexibility to implant internal tip reporting procedures. So what the IRS wants them to do is implement a program internally that automatically calculates the tips paid and sends that information to the IRS so they can ding the servers for those tips. So when Joe Biden stands there and says, I'm not raising taxes on anyone making under $400,000, check it, Jack, it's the truth. And he goes on and gets all indignant. It's a lie, because I don't know servers who make $400,000 a year. So, and there's a tip cup everywhere you go. You go to Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks. This person behind the counter literally just poured a cup of coffee and made it exactly the way I told them to. They hit the button to get the creamer, and they hit they sometimes have to open a packet, for whatever kind of sweetener you want, if you want a sweetener. And then they pour the coffee, and I'm supposed to tip them for that. There are tip jars everywhere. My bakery, when the girl's taking the cakes and she's putting them into a box, and that's it. Premium number. What the heck? From France. Should I answer it? A premium number from France? I should answer that, right? I think that's not a number I should answer. But I'm supposed to tip the girl in the bakery. I mean, just because you make minimum wage doesn't mean you're doing a job that's tippable. I don't think. So, I go get my shoes done. I go to the cobbler. I'm a big fan of that. I go to the cobbler. I don't throw anything out. I get stuff resold, whatever. There's a tip jar. Just charge me what you think your service is worth. Oh, James is back. James is back. There you are.
Do I sound okay?
Yes. Let me turn you down a little bit in my headset now, because I had turned you up. Okay, go ahead. Talk.
Am I better?
Yes.
Good.
Hey, buddy. Come here.
Yay.
Yay.
I'll take it. But I did hear you, and hello.
He's been wandering around. He wants to get on my lap.
I did hear part of that, and I do think that that's a fascinating thing about who deserves to get tips and who doesn't. Because I even wonder, like, do I tip the guy who, I don't know, like hands me something, or like when you go into the
Right.
trash can, like who's tippable now? Who's not tippable? Like I never know who I'm supposed to tip anymore.
You know, at Christmas we'll leave like the trash guys, you know, an envelope, whatever. My husband
Yeah,
will
of
try to
course.
like meet them one morning, you know. They do a good job. And everybody leaves them beer, and apparently they like cash. So
Everybody likes cash.
everybody likes cash, right? The mailman, they can't take cash, but we used to give the mailman. Now I have like four different mailmen. We used to have the same guy every year. First it was Tommy, and then it was Charlie, and now I have no idea who they are because it's all different people now.
Right.
So I don't know. But I used to tip when I knew who it was. You know, it's just out of control. Anyway,
Oh
so they're
yeah.
coming for your tips. The government's
Great.
coming for your tips. So yeah,
Great.
isn't that great? Yeah, I know.
I'm
Wonderful,
very
right?
excited.
I know. Al says it's now perfect, your sound.
Oh, thank you, buddy. Great.
Yay. All right. Thank you for that. Okay. Let's move on because I've got some good stuff to get to here. So the balloon. I did not know this, and I caught this earlier this week. And tell me if you heard this. So Saturday, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin called his Chinese counterpart on Saturday after they shot down the balloon to have a conversation about it. The Chinese wouldn't take his call.
Oh yeah, it's getting a little ugly. Yeah.
They wouldn't take the Secretary of Defense's call.
Good.
You know, and I heard, I think it was Brett Baer saying that even at the worst parts of the Cold War, you know, we still had open lines of communication with Russia. And China is not taking our phone calls.
Yeah.
And they want the destroyed pieces of their balloon back. I think we should get what we can get from it and then dump it back in the ocean and tell them to come and get it.
I thought we should do what you said, except put it on the end of a cruise missile and just launch it back at them. So,
there you go.
yeah.
Or put it on a spy balloon and fly it back.
That's right. Yeah. Put it on its own balloon and just deliver it over the country. Yeah, that's the one. Put it on its own balloon and just deliver it back to them via a balloon. Yeah, that's totally
100%. So yes, I just thought it was wild that they're not taking our phone calls.
Yeah. Well,
I thought that was
they're not
interesting.
bright.
I think the Chinese are very smart.
I don't at all.
I do.
I think they're in big trouble and they know it.
Big trouble in what way?
Oh, they've got population problems. They've got economy problems. They're a disaster right now. They're a wannabe world power that doesn't have the ability to project what they want.
Well, their army is way bigger than ours. Their army is better equipped than ours. Their army isn't worrying about pronouns. Their army's worrying about fighting. They have these spy balloons all over the world. So they're getting all the information they want from all over the world, right? So they're stealing our technology right, left, and sideways. We're paying to develop it, and then they steal it. They produce our pharmaceuticals. They produce our chips. If we go to war with China, no more pharmaceuticals, no more Intel chips for your computers and your cars and all that other stuff.
Hold on. No, they don't produce the high quality chips. They produce all the garbage chips. They produce the stuff that makes your like radio that has a chip work or your garbage stuff work. The super high end chips are actually produced here. But that's still not good because we'll get no good desired chips. I mean, it's not that they, we won't lose every chip in the world. We'll lose all the chips to things that run your normal stuff. Besides, but still, they're not doing much with our technology like they used to. They haven't in 15 years produced like a solid weapon out of it that's made any sense or any really good stuff that they've stolen. Look, they're still a threat and they're a giant economy. So I'm not saying they're not, but I don't think they're the fearful enemy as much as like old school Russia would have been, right? Other than they have a gazillion nuclear weapons. So that's a problem.
I also think though that they're way smarter than Joe Biden and this administration. This administration's a crap show. So I just think that they're way smarter.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make me feel good. And they're not afraid of us at all. They were afraid of Donald Trump because they thought he was crazy.
Well, everybody's afraid of Donald Trump.
I mean, wasn't he having dinner with Xi Jinping at Mar-a-Lago? And he did something to North Korea and put down the phone and said, like, how do you enjoy the chicken? Like on the phone while Xi Jinping's there. He
Yeah,
did
yeah.
something in North Korea and then put the phone down and said, "So, how's it going?"
Yeah,
Just to let him know that I can and I will.
yeah.
Whereas, but's not Biden. Scott over on Getter says they could have shot lead arrows to that spy balloon, and it was so heavy until it was so heavy it landed. I don't know how you do that outside of a jet. Arrows. I don't know how you do that. He
Yeah.
said not shoot the balloon itself, just the platform with lead arrows. We're
Well,
probably making sure any text, if they still is bugged, any tech is still bugged. So
I don't think it's disingenuous they wanted to shoot it down over a non-populated area and get the technology. I don't think that's I think that's how a military would think. I don't think that's unreasonable.
what to say they didn't want to shoot it down over a populated area?
Yeah, I don't think that's
So
unreasonable.
why didn't they shoot it down over the Aleutians into the Pacific Ocean before it got here? Why didn't they shoot it down over Alaska where there's literally thousands and thousands of miles of nothing?
I actually think they wanted to figure out what it does, because they're probably watching the one in South America now too and seeing where it goes, what it does. Look, what are they really going to learn from a spy balloon that they're not going to figure out from their satellites, right?
Well, no, these spy balloons are closer because they're closer. They can hear telephone conversations. These things can pick up communications. They're much more capable and get much more in depth than spy satellites. So that's why these were very dangerous. And this was not good at all.
I don't think they were dangerous at all. I don't have any fear of a dumb spy balloon listening to Middle America's dumb conversation about corn.
When they were flying and hovering over like nuclear sites in Montana, you don't think that was dangerous? You don't think that they were picking up things?
I don't think they talk on the phone.
You don't, but there's other communication streams that they can pick up. I'm sorry. How do we know that this balloon didn't have some kind of bioweapon that it just could have dumped somewhere over the United States?
That would have been a serious dilemma. But I imagine they knew that didn't have that. Like, I don't have that worry that the military doesn't know what they're doing in this capacity. I think they had to figure out what was going on. I'm not worried that they didn't decide. In fact, it was the military were the ones who said, don't shoot it down.
See, I think there's something else. No, there's something else going on here. Why didn't Canada know it was flying over their airspace?
How do we know?
And if they did, why didn't they tell us when it was headed towards us?
We don't know that they didn't or did. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't.
They said they didn't know.
Yeah, but I mean, who knows what the media tells people? I don't believe any of that nonsense. I mean, I don't believe any of these people. I think more goes on behind the scenes that we don't know. That I'm not saying right or wrong. They do plenty of shit behind the scenes we don't know. But I'm just saying, like, I don't think the balloon story is the killer story of the year. I think Biden's done much dumber than, listen to the military, not shoot this balloon down.
No. Al says my dog is smarter than Biden. Scott says, if it was a real spy balloon, if it was a weather balloon, if there was a real spy balloon, they probably would not have shot it down, is my guess. They knew it was a weather balloon. That's why they shot it down. It's invaluable. But we now know they admitted it was a spy balloon. So
yeah,
they admitted it. So they lied at first and then they admitted it. Al says we have lasers that can put pinholes all over that balloon and slow walk it down. Yeah, I don't understand why they destroyed it. That didn't make any sense to me either, at all. All right. Oh God, I have cat hair everywhere now. It's like shedding all over the place. And I'm allergic to this one, so this will be fun. Right, buddy? Yeah, okay. He's falling.
By the way, last thing on China.
Yes.
Get rid of your TikTok accounts.
I don't have one.
I know
Never
you don't.
opened.
No, I don't either.
People are like, you need to be on TikTok. You need to be on TikTok.
No.
Nope. And like, they don't want anything I have. I'm like, I think they were flying that balloon over to find the best place to put the re-education camps. So
yeah. There was a comment up earlier that said that's where the path for the dirty bomb. I was like, yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So while you were gone, by the way, I got a call from France. I should definitely have answered that. Right.
Well, they're just seeing if you wanted to come over and have some wine. Cheese,
And it shows some kind of international number. It's probably coming from a prison in Jersey. Yeah.
Collect call from wee.
Exactly. I probably should have answered it during the show just to see like what it was. But
that's how I answer. I know this is not our but that's how I answer collector calls. Hello, WND, you're on the air. Where you call? What's your name? Where are you from? That's how I answer all those calls.
My husband answers with like a local police department.
Nice.
Sergeant Krupke.
Yeah, totally.
just to see what they say. Okay, so the two big stories that I really wanted to talk about. The first one is a Pew survey. Now, this is a Pew Research study. It's not a survey, it's a Pew Research study.
Okay.
And they did it in 2020. And it got no play in the press. And a guy named, what's his name? Well, Zach Goldberg. He's a doctoral candidate who reviewed this study and is in mental health doctorate. And he reviewed this and he put it out on Twitter. And for some reason, it's back. I didn't see this. And if anybody else saw this when it came out the first time, like first came out in 2020, this guy then did a deep dive into it, dissected it all, put up all these graphs and charts and everything. And if anybody saw it anywhere along the line, let me know. Ed says they only destroyed the balloon, not the data collection device attached to it. Yeah. But when it hit the ocean at terminal velocity, it might have taken a little bit of a beating, just saying. Okay, so here what they did. This 2020 Pew Research study revealed that over half of white liberal women have been diagnosed with a mental health condition at some point. So they did a study to find out if there's a correlation between progressive ideas and mental health.
Okay.
So this is not to be funny. This is not to throw stones and go, yeah, you have a mental disorder, or, look, that's what that says, TDS is real or anything. I do believe TDS is real. I do think Trump broke their brains. So here's what they say. The Pew Research found, all politics aside, over 50% of liberal women with some form of mental health medical diagnosis. And they say this is a public health concern that no one seems to be discussing and no one's taking it seriously because, the discourse always goes to, you're crazy, you're an idiot, well, you're a racist, you're this, you're that. Well, there may be a connection here. And I buy this, and I'm going to go into it, but I believe this because, and I've said this before, if you watch any of these reality shows, like Teen Mom or this, they all have, what do I say over and over again? Everybody under 40 has been diagnosed with anxiety or depression. Everybody's on some kind of mental medication, some kind of mental health medication, right? And doctors will tell you, depending on their practice, that people who come into their office who are under 40, everyone's like, oh, well, I have anxiety. I've been diagnosed. I have anxiety. Oh, who's the doctor who diagnosed you? Oh, well, I didn't go to a doctor. Oh, well, how do you know? Well, because I know. I have anxiety or I have depression, whatever. Fill in the blank. So again, this is not meant to be funny or derogatory. Women in general are 40% more likely to develop depression than men across the board. And they say that's due to women have lower levels of serotonin, which is the happiness, right? So women just naturally have lower levels of serotonin. So they're much more likely to suffer from depression. They're also more likely to have anxiety as well because of that deficiency.
Right.
And then they say certain life experiences like childbirth can also lead to diagnosis of depression. 1 in 7 women will be diagnosed with postpartum depression in the year following childbirth. That's a lot, 1 in 7.
That's a lot. Yeah, 1 in 7, definitely a lot.
Right? That's a lot. And so, and of course, there's stigma attached to that, getting medication and that whole kind of thing. And I look at the forms for when you fill out to buy a gun or for your firearms ID card in states where you need one, that kind of thing. They ask, do you have a history of mental health diagnosis? Now you have to put that down there, right? Well, I was depressed. So were you on medication? And you had to put the medication down. Yeah, but it was postpartum depression, which is common after childbirth. That doesn't mean that it lasts your whole life. It lasts for a set period of time after giving birth. They put you on medication, whatever, if they can, to, depending whether you're breastfeeding, etc., what they can put you on, and you deal with it. That doesn't mean that you still have it. So I think there's a stigma attached to it that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge.
Right.
The study examined white liberals, moderates, and conservatives, both male and female. And they found the conservatives, I have cat hair all over me, were far less likely to be diagnosed with mental health issues than those who identified as either liberal or very liberal. And white women ages 18 to 29 who identified as liberal were given a mental health diagnosis from medical professionals at the rate of 56.3%, as opposed to 28.4% in moderates and 27.3% in conservatives.
Is there
I
such
still
a
think
thing?
that's high.
It is. Is there such a thing as conservative women between 18 and 29? Does that class of women even exist?
You
It
know
seems like
what?
a small pool.
I think it is a small pool, but I think they exist. They're just in the closet. They're in hiding.
I buy that.
And I look at my nieces who fall into that age group, that age cohort, 18 to 29. They're right in there. And they are definitely much more conservative leaning. They all, they had jobs when they were 16. They've had to earn stuff. They've both come out of, so far, two are out of college, got jobs while they were in college. The youngest one in her junior year of engineering at Virginia Tech just got the dean's list, and she just got nominated or just invited into some honor society for students who were in the top percentage in engineering and systems and industrial engineering, which is what she's studying.
Yeah.
So they're crazy, stupid, smart, and she'll have a job before she gets out of college. All three of them. So they definitely are more conservative leaning. My brother-in-law's kids are conservative. So the pendulum is starting to swing the other way, because if you want to be a rebel now and you want to rebel against the man and against society and everything else, be a conservative.
Right.
Because everyone around you is crazy liberal.
Yeah, especially in college.
Right. Yeah, so if you really want to be different, but I think they're on the down low. I think that's what happens.
Right. The girls at the club, you just don't know that they like Trump.
Right.
Yeah.
Al says everyone has a cannabinoidal system. If you're not getting enough, CBD works wonders for those people. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But I think natural serotonin is probably far better because it's natural and it's, part of your. Okay. Zach Goldberg, as I said, the doctoral candidate, consolidated the study's information into a set of visuals, and he posted them in a thread on Twitter. And he said, I didn't write this thread to mock white liberals or their apparently disproportionate rates of mental illness, and you shouldn't either. This is a question that's underexplored, which may shed light on attitudinal differences towards various social policies. And they say he's right. A board-certified psychiatrist named Dr. Lyle Rossiter treats mental disorders. He's been doing it for over 30 years. And he said that white liberalism thrives on championing workers, minorities, the little guy, women, unemployed, and they continuously see wrong, cheated, oppressed, disenfranchised, exploited, and victimized with little to no agency of their own. So they see these people as, oh, nobody puts up for these people. They're helpless. They need me, right? Who's always at the front lines telling black cops that they're racist? White women, right? They're the ones who are telling the black cop you're racist. And the black cop's like, really, little girl? Like, you're going to tell me I'm the racist? It's kind of ridiculous. So he says poverty, disease, war, ignorance, unemployment, racial prejudice, ethnic and gender discrimination, modern technology, capitalism, globalism, and imperialism is what they blame for this power disparity, why these people can't help themselves, And so they internalize, and they're constantly being told that, well, you have white privilege, because you're white, you're bad, because you're privileged, you're bad, and because of you, these people are downtrodden and can't help themselves, and they get less, right? And they're victims. So he says, in the radical liberal mind, this suffering is inflicted on those innocent by various predators and persecutors, right? And those are big business, big corporations, greedy capitalists, U.S. imperialists, the oppressors, the rich, the wealthy, the powerful, the selfish, the white, everything you see on Twitter or social media every single day, right? So imagine living in that world. And I've often said, and we've discussed, liberals have no sense of humor. They're humorless people. They wake up every day wondering, what the heck is wrong in my world today? What am I going to rail about today, right? And Al says, Leo Terrell is a perfect example. Leo 1.0 seems miserable all the time. Leo 2.0 is a joy to listen to now. He's right. 100%. Leo saw the light and came on over to the dark side. And that's a mixed metaphor, but you know what I mean. So they say in this breakdown of the study, progressivism is an ideology that supposedly demands equality for all, and one that keeps score to an exhausting degree. The privilege between social classes, races, men, women, religious and non-religious, and more, all have to be constantly monitored, and inequality has to be exposed. For the purposes of accountability. That kind of behavior isn't just unrealistic; it's unsustainable. It's understandable that anxiety and depression thrive in these kinds of environments where we're focusing on every minute, every minute problematic issue in our world, and not be able to take comprehensive production action to solve those problems. So he's right. Every minute you're just racking up oh my gosh, this is such an injustice. This is terrible. This is horrible every single day, but you can't do anything about it. So you feel helpless and hopeless.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so it's a doubt. No wonder they're depressed. It's a horrible world to live in.
Yeah, if you're that hyper focused on things that you're also probably not doing anything to change. Like you could just be the better human, right? You could just not be the racist and just be an example, right? And rather than trying to find every racist in your neighborhood and expose them, which is ridiculous, right?
But they think that they're being the better person by rioting against cops, because we're going to get rid of the racist cops because they're part of the system. They think they're being the better person by, throwing bricks through the windows of Bank of America because that's corporate greed, and they're the oppressors and all that stuff. And that, though, you're really not changing anything by doing that. You think you are.
Yeah,
but it doesn't really make you feel better. And can you imagine being surrounded by people who are in that downward spiral, that morass all the time?
No.
How miserable they are?
No, I avoid those people like the plague.
Right, but we don't know them, right?
Oh, 100%. They're unrelenting. Unrelenting. Yeah. Yeah. Look, there still is racism. So there's still, all these things all still exist. And none of that has gone away. It's how you mentally are going against it or living your life every day around it. Like I said, you could, in a real way, not the throwing bricks way. I mean, like in a real way, you could just be the better person, right? You could just quietly be charitable and, helping. You could be a good person and give you an example to living a better life rather than sitting on your social media page every minute and going, oh, you're all terrible, generalizing everything. And,
you could also look at things differently through a different lens. You could also say, instead of saying, oh my God, this is a horrible, terrible country. This country needs to be torn down. America's founded in racism, and Americans, we have to tear down the statue of all our founding fathers because it's founded in racism. They could look at this country and go, well, this country fought to end racism. This country recognized the wrong, and people died. How many hundreds of thousands of men died in the Civil War, white men, to stop the institution of slavery, right?
Right.
Like, why don't we look at that redemption story? Why don't we look at the post-Civil War era where they erected monuments to those who died in the Civil War as recognizing that we are one country and they were Americans and we righted this wrong. Instead they have to tear it down because it's terrible. It's horrible. They only see bad things. They never see anything good.
Well, exactly. Right. Every one of those statues weren't brilliant. I mean, a couple of times they just put up KK people in their hometown to go like, hey, here's Jebediah. But that's not the same thing as putting up General Lee, right? Who spent his post-war years, trying to rebuild America to a detriment of his own. Right.
But they're taking down statues of Lincoln, for God's sake. They took down a statue of Abraham Lincoln and a black slave, and the black slave is at Abraham Lincoln's feet. Freed black slaves paid for that statue.
It's that,
and we tore it down.
Well, that's my point. When you generalize or you see bad in you're just you just don't have any sense. You don't see that taking down Jebediah's thing in some hillbilly town makes sense, but taking down Lincoln or Lee or Grant or anybody in the past. I mean, was there a thing that Washington now is bad, right? Because he had a couple slaves, but he lived in 1700s. I mean, It wasn't unacceptable then. There was no, I mean, it's a insane thing to put modern thought processes through the ancient past, right?
That exactly. Bingo. You nailed it. We have to, these people
Good for
judge
good.
history through today's standards, and they only judge certain history. They don't look at all of it. Oh,
Right.
reparations. And now they're saying that it's okay to be racist. Black people can be racist against white people because we're going to atone, white people are now atoning for their sins. So we're just going to double down on the wrongness. But it's so ridiculous because listen, there are some tribes in Africa that waged war on other tribes, took them prisoner, and sold those people as slaves to the slave traders. Where do you think the slaves came from? The white slave traders who went over to Africa to pick up their cargo didn't step foot off those boats.
No.
Those slaves were brought to them by other Africans
There were
who
also
enslaved them and sold them to get rich.
Black American slave owners in the South. There
Mm-hmm.
were rich black people who owned their own slaves.
And if you want to go,
by the way,
go ahead.
You should hear a gentleman. I've mentioned him on the other show, and I mentioned him everywhere in my world. I'm fascinated with a man named Daryl Davis, who's this. He's a black piano player, famous black piano player. But his also thing was he wrote a book called "How Do You Hate Me If You Don't Know Me," and he's converted over like 200 KKK Nazis, including the 2 last Grand Wizards of the Maryland KKK, who are now his friends. By the way. He was bringing some of these KKK guys to his band rehearsals. Imagine showing up like you're a blues band, a bunch of black guys hanging around playing blues, and all of a sudden, like, hey, I brought Jebediah over. He's my new pal. And they're all like, what the? So, but he's a fascinating guy. He was the one I heard on a couple of different things talking about how our perceptions of racism are also, and I'm 100% paraphrasing, so don't take me word for word, but I mean, our perceptions about racism sometimes are the problem. Not understanding the real history of the country is a real problem. Not knowing that there were not 1,000, but there were black slave owners. I mean,
and by the way,
like you said, black people in Africa were the ones handing the black people over to the white people. I mean, you just need to know history. It doesn't make it right. It just, you should know what history is, though. You can't whitewash history and just assume that all white people were bad and all black people were good. And that's the way the world was. Was not remotely like that. Like you said, plenty of white people died Yeah.
Read Thomas Sowell's Black Redneck White Liberal, where he goes into the history of slavery. More white people have been enslaved in this world than black people. The word slave comes from Slavic, comes from Slav, where those were who were enslaved people. They were called slaves because it was the Slavs who were enslaved. And every single society across this country has a history of slaving at one point or another. Right. And there's still a slave trade going on where whites are being enslaved to Muslims, still going on. So, like you said, a little bit of history, but bottom line with this thing, I just thought it was such an interesting study. And they talk about, there's also an unrelenting focus on oppression, verbal violence, microaggressions. They see it everywhere. Building resiliency against hardship is the best weapon against depression and anxiety, yet progressive ideology forces its followers to wallow in feelings of helplessness and victimhood. You're one or the other. I'm your ally. You'd be your ally, but I really can't do anything to help you, but I wish I could. If you wake up every day like that, that's terrible. And instead of empowering women and minorities with self-knowledge, strength of character, and resilience to hardship, progressivism encourages victims to stay in place of fear and helplessness. Because if you're a victim, they lift you up. You're a victim, so you're so much better than the rest of us. You're a victim and you get special stuff. You get reparations. You get this, you get that because you're a victim and you can't help yourself. It's like liberals who say that, voter ID is racist because black people don't have ID. That's one of the most racist things. How dare you assume that just because they're black, they don't have ID? They're incapable. They need your help. Get the hell out of here.
Bill Burr
That's wildly racist.
100%. Bill Burr had a funny joke about how white women hijacked how white women hijacked that movement. The movement of oppression. They're like, yeah, I'm again paraphrasing. He does this so much better, but like you're being oppressed from your hot tub in your Lincoln. You're really sitting there in your Lexus, going to your hot tub, talking about oppression for white women.
Exactly. And he said it's also key that white individuals are usually at the forefront of these movements, whether or not they're the group that's being adversely affected. It's true. Like I said, the right in the front of the line for the Black Lives Matter movement, holding the flag,
Yeah.
which BLM is the biggest scam. I mean, the people who started that, Patrice Cullors, etc. She's a multi-millionaire now, 3 mansions. Come on, where did that money go that you all gave, all you white people gave out of guilt? As most of us know now, white guilt and savior narratives are pretty much as bad as any genuinely racist agenda because it robs the group that they're trying to help of their own voice. So I just thought that was so interesting. So if anybody had seen that already, I apologize for going over it, but I hadn't seen that. And that's from 2020. And then this other guy dug into it last year in 2021. And for whatever reason, it came across my Twitter timeline recently. So I said, oh, I saved it for like a couple weeks, and I didn't have it with me last week, and then the week before we didn't do one because I was sick, and so I've had it for about a month now, and I just really needed to dig into that. I don't know, I liked it. That was interesting.
Best thing. Yeah.
Okay. So now this isn't getting any play anywhere. This is Just the News by John Solomon. I think it's a great website. John Solomon, you know his name. I think he used to be like a contributor at Fox, and he started his own thing. Super smart guy. And he gets some of these great interviews. Yesterday, he interviewed a guy named George Hill. Now, George Hill is a military vet and a longtime analyst for the National Security, NSA, the National Security Agency, and FBI. He retired last year from the Bureau, the FBI Bureau's Boston field office.
Okay.
He told Congress in a whistleblower disclosure, so he's a whistleblower, he's retired, so they cannot retaliate. They're not going to retaliate against him now, like they did to, Stephen Friend, that guy. He told them that agents in Boston were improperly pressured by Washington to open criminal cases on 140 people who had taken a bus ride to the January 6th rally in Washington. So for the crime of getting on a bus, the FBI in Washington wanted these people criminally investigated. To their credit, the Boston agents refused because they said there was no evidence that the attendees were engaged in any criminality. And there's more. All right. So he gave his testimony to the House Judiciary Committee and he raised also new civil liberty concerns that include whether the FBI mined Americans' bank records without court authority, and whether the agency possesses video footage that they're refusing to release because it identifies undercover agents and human sources who were at the Capitol that day. Now, I think at this point in the game, most people pretty much think that that's exactly what happened. And the most famous of them all being, of course, Ray Epps. There are several other people who are on the FBI's most wanted list and disappeared off the list. There was a guy who was on top, climbing the scaffolding and was telling people to go in with a megaphone, and you could see he's carrying. He was on the most wanted list. He disappeared. He's not wanted anymore. How come? There's questions. Who opened the Columbus doors from inside? You have to enter a code to open the Columbus doors. You cannot pry those open. Those are huge brass tonnage doors. They're huge. You can't just open them. They're mechanical, and they can only be opened from the inside. Who opened them to let people in? Why don't we know that?
So we're saying the government instigated some dum-dums to do some dumb stuff. Shocking.
I know.
Shocking.
So he said, he told Just the News yesterday that he disclosed concerns earlier this week to the House Judiciary Committee during a transcribed deposition, including that the Bureau analyzed banking data without any evidence of a crime just to find Americans who traveled to Washington around the time of January 6th or who owned a gun.
Well, that sounds like a different excuse for what they're fishing for, right? And a gun?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
He said supervisors in the Washington field office pressured to open cases first on 7 individuals who came up in a sweep of bank records provided by Bank of America. And then on the larger group of 140 who paid to take bus rides to President Trump's rally on January 6th. and he credited his supervisors in Boston for resisting the pressure. He also said the Washington field office, which led the January 6th probe, did not react well to the refusal, and they escalated up the chain of command. But at each step of the process, the Boston office held its ground. He said, getting on a bus and participating in a political rally is not predication for a crime or a preliminary investigation, and Boston said no. So there are some good field people out there.
Sure,
there are
of
some
course.
things out there. It's Washington that stinks to high holy heaven in a shock to no one, right? Al says, hashtag January 6th false flag.
Well, Al,
Right.
let's be realistic. There's still a bunch of dum-dums that went running through the halls of this building like it was their college dorm. You know, those people clearly, whether they were let in by the FBI or not, by some
Right.
whatever thing, were still dumb enough to go running around the Capitol and peeing on walls. I mean,
well, very few people peed on walls. There's a grandma who has cancer who walked through open doors into the Capitol, stayed on the red carpet, took some selfies, and went home, and she had to do jail time.
still borderline.
You know, I'm sorry, but if you walk through open doors, and there's video of Capitol Police holding the doldors open and letting people walk in.
We all know that they weren't supposed to be there, and they knew they weren't supposed to be. Look, if you want to, yes.
If the cops are holding the doors open,
it doesn't
for
matter. You know, you're in the middle of a riot and you're walking into the Capitol building. You know,
the riot was on one side of the Capitol. The other side of the Capitol, there was no riot. The cops are seen moving the barriers so that they can come in.
Yeah, but were they cops?
Yes, Capitol Police.
I don't know. They weren't FBI agents. That's my point. I don't
Maybe
know what
they
the hell
were.
happened. I'm
Maybe
just saying,
they were.
You know, you're not supposed to go running around and running through a Capitol building. You know,
and that's fine. That's fine. But it is the people's house. But that's fine. But here's my problem with this. Right now, it's happening. I forget which state it's happening in, where trans groups have taken over Iowa or whatever state house, and they're in there screaming and yelling and taking it over, and no business is allowed to be done because they're taking it over, but they're not being arrested. How come?
Dumbest thing I've ever heard. Yeah. Oh, I'm with you 100%. Yeah, why aren't they being...
But the disparate treatment is the problem to me. And these people who walked in through open doors, stayed on the carpet in Statuary Hall, looked around, took pictures, and left. Why are they being charged?
Yeah, they probably
being charged with parading. Really?
Right. Yeah, you find them and you get them out. I get it. And the non-speedy trials are terrible too. I'm not saying any of that is right or any of that. I'm just saying we all know there were some dum-dums running around the Capitol that shouldn't have been there that were doing bad things. Those people should be prosecuted quickly, and be done with it. The people on the lawn or the people that were just out, you know, marching for Trump early on in the day, those people aren't criminals. They went to an actual rally. They went to a rally to support a candidate they like. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm talking about a very select few people that did really stupid things. You try those dum-dums and you put them in jail. And you do it quickly, by the way. You don't leave them there for 3 years, right or wrong. You don't leave them there for a time, wait. You just get them out. You know,
well, that's not what's happening. Right? It's political persecution. And because it's political persecution, I think they should all be let go at this point in the game. Al says the real insurrection was the Capitol hearings where it occurred in the well of the House. Yeah, but those people, they just carried him out and they came back the next day. And they carried him out and they came back the next day.
Ridiculous.
Because they were not Trump supporters.
Right.
So that's where my problem is with this whole thing. How can it be a riot when the people are shown walking inside the velvet ropes? Yeah, exactly. How is that a riot? I agree. I agree, Al. I have zero tolerance for any of the persecution that's happening. Scotty says, hopefully President Trump will be able to free everybody again. Oh, yeah. And then they'll be screaming that, you know, he's freeing insurrectionists.
President Trump. Good luck with that one.
Jim Jordan, House Judiciary Committee chair, said, I appreciate this brave whistleblower coming forward. He's worked in the military and then as an FBI agent. He gave us a lot of valuable information that will be the foundation for our weaponization investigation going forward. So I'm glad they're doing this. Hill's account backs up other FBI whistleblowers like Special Agent Stephen Friend that I mentioned, who've alleged the FBI's Washington field office exerted undue pressure and exhibited political bias in an effort to get field offices around the country to open up as many domestic terrorism cases on January 6 attendees as possible, to pad numbers or to make Trump supporters who came to Washington feel pain and shame. The process was the punishment. How many people were arrested because they went to the rally and they were asking people to call up and anonymously report people who went to the Trump rally? And these people were being rounded up with raids on their homes by the FBI because they attended the rally.
Right. Those are the people I'm talking about.
No
Yep.
proof that they were inside the Capitol.
Right.
Just that they were at the rally. They raided their homes. They took their computers. They handcuffed them and paraded them in front of their friends and family to intimidate them. How dare you support the other guy? So because of that, I think they all go free. And I want to see us do that to the FBI who did that. And sorry, the agents too, because those are unlawful orders. I'm sorry. 2024 will be a vote between Trump or civil war. Mark my words. I don't know. I don't know if we're that stage.
You'll get DeSantis. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine now.
I would like to see DeSantis and Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Oh, I like her.
Yeah.
I like her a lot. Okay. Friend has also been sidelined from his job because his security clearance, because a whistleblower, was suspended because he's a whistleblower. So now they're punishing him for being a whistleblower, which I didn't think that was legal, but apparently it's happening, and hopefully he will sue. But then you and I pay for it. The people who did it don't get sued. We get sued. The FBI National Press Office and Bank of America's media department did not immediately respond to requests for comment yesterday. There have been concerns in legal circles for more than a year about the FBI obtaining bank data from institutions that volunteered it without a subpoena. They just said, here you go. And listen, I have bank accounts at Bank of America. When I was living in Washington, D.C., does that mean that if I had made a transaction, in or around January 6th, that they would have been banging on my door?
Yeah.
Right? Does that mean that they would have raided me and embarrassed me in front of all of my neighbors because they gave my bank records over without a subpoena? How is there not a huge lawsuit against Bank of America because of this?
Where would it go?
Well, Bank of America would have to pay out.
I don't think in this world it would go anywhere. I know what you mean.
No, I think for private institutions, absolutely. Look, they warned the Twitter execs. This is just the first step. The next step is the arrest warrants. Because you colluded with the federal government to suppress the First Amendment rights of individuals and influence an election. The FBI guys aren't going away. But this maybe teaches the private sector who thinks, oh, it's okay. I can, because I don't like those people anyway. I'm going to help the federal government without a subpoena. And I'm just going to give over the bank records of my clients without a subpoena. Pretty sure you broke a couple banking laws there.
It seems reasonable. That's true. Yeah.
Right.
That's
Let's see. Judicial Watch is currently pursuing litigation to force the FBI to release documents on how it got the bank records during the January 6th probe, but so far the FBI is not providing any data. Hill said he was told the banks provided the FBI with the records that they mined. Nobody asked for it. They handed it over voluntarily. He also told the committee about concerns he developed when the Washington field office refused to let its colleagues in Boston review surveillance video from the Capitol to see if any of the 140 attendees had committed any crimes. The answer, they said, well, let's see. If they committed a crime, then we'll give you information. Like, other than taking a bus to Washington, D.C. to go on a field trip with a bunch of friends, show us that they committed a crime.
Right.
Mm-hmm. The answer he got back raised concerns about whether the FBI had undercovers or informants at the site. When you asked for footage, what they came back with is, tell us the exact place and time where you think the subject of your investigation was, to which the reply was, well, we don't know because we can't see the footage. And then they said, well, then there may be identities within the footage that we need to protect. So the FBI doesn't want to release that footage because there may be identities in the footage that we need to protect.
I'm more fascinated that when liberals started trusting the FBI. Because I don't remember ever trusting the FBI, by the way, ever, under any administration ever. So I've always thought that, and read multiple times, I mean, going back to what's his name wearing dresses there, I'm talking about back in the 50s. FBI director.
Herbert Hoover.
Yeah, right. Going all the way back. I mean, FBI's been a little sketchy at times. I don't know if this is a shock. I'm just shocked that liberals suddenly trust the FBI. Like they trusted the drug companies.
Right.
Like suddenly, by the way, I took the vaccine. I'm still not sure, though, that I trust the drug companies on any level.
Especially since you have heart problems, dude. May not have been the wisest choice, unfortunately, but you can't undo it now.
No, and I don't have 9 boosters, so
Yeah, I
let's go
just
there.
hope you're okay. Yeah, well, nothing you can do. What I always say, it's so interesting. Bernie Sanders, back in the 60s was getting married in Russia, and he was, that peace, love against the man, don't trust anybody over 30. He was a total hippie, the whole bit. All of those hippies now are the man,
Yeah.
right? And it's just fascinating to me, to your point. And that's why there's an artist out in LA called Sabo, and he said, the ultimate counterculture now is to be against the government. So all these kids who are so liberal aren't anti-establishment, they're pro-establishment. And they're slowly starting to realize that that's not cool. And that's
No.
where you're starting to see, that's where I think the script is starting to flip. Like we've hit a tipping point and it's starting to come back the other way now, I think.
Yeah, don't trust any of these psychos. Who would trust any of these people?
Well,
I don't have a nuclear bomb, but if one fell on DC at this point, I wouldn't be sad. And I meant the Capitol building. I didn't mean the people. I meant the Capitol. Little ones.
I don't know. The people in DC.
Nuclear weapon. Want to
I
take
have.
out the Capitol? I would.
I do question a lot of the way the people in Washington D.C. work, the way they vote. So it may not be a terrible thing.
Now, Merrick talking about killing civilians might get us flagged. I'm just saying.
I'm not. That's true. That's true. We'll get flagged on YouTube, as we do all the time, apparently, because we're terrible, horrible people.
Horrible.
We may have to move. We may have to move this to Rumble. I'm not sure yet. I don't have a Rumble account. I have too many social media accounts. I can't.
Yeah.
With another account. So anyway, I wanted to share that because I just thought it was so fascinating and so interesting, and no one's talking about it. And they wanted what's going on where they wanted the 140 people, an investigation opened into 140 people. And when they say investigation, they wanted the field office to storm the homes of 140 people who paid for a bus trip to Washington, D.C. for the crime of going to Washington, D.C. to see Donald Trump speak. They should have their homes raided. They should be humiliated in front of their neighbors, because this is political persecution. This is what they do in Russia. This is what they do in North Korea, right? These are the tactics they use to suppress speech. This is a Brazilian move. This is a third world country move that that they drive you underground, which in a way, it's kind of like what happened in 2016 where they shut down any speech that was pro-Trump. They shut it down. And that's why they were so surprised when he won, because they shut down and made people afraid to speak about their support for Trump. So they never knew how much support was out there. In 2020, they knew how much support was out there, which is why they had to rig the election, in my humble opinion, as a failsafe, just in case. So anyway, I thought it was super, super interesting. So thank you to everybody who's joining us on Getter and on YouTube. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for joining us. Again, thank you to James A. for all the memes. You're wonderful and amazing. Thank you to Pete for the topic suggestions. Thank you. He's always sending me stuff. Thank you to EB for all of the graphics and all our branding and everything that he does for us. Thank you to James for the music. For Life with Mary Walter. Do appreciate that. And he does help me with getting everything posted on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, which we will do hopefully by tomorrow morning, or I will do it tomorrow morning. We will get that done so you can get it up there. Please tell your friends about it. Please like the podcast. Please subscribe to the channel. We greatly appreciate it. Now, there will be no Life with Mary Walter on Tuesday. There'll be no Mary Walter Radio on Thursday, because I've got so much to do between now and tomorrow, because we're going away. So I have my house sitter coming. And it's not that bad because we were just away. So the house is really, really clean for the house sitter, because someone comes and stays with the cats and everything, and works remotely in the house, and I feed him and everything. So I am going to be out in Idaho skiing, hopefully not breaking my leg again.
Hey, you know what you can do while you're away? Catch up on old episodes. Go watch our old stuff. If you missed them, go watch old episodes. Go check them out. We made other episodes. It's not the first one.
Yeah, absolutely. Great idea. Or just put them on, let them run, and walk away if you don't like it. That's fine.
That's true. Yeah.
Listen, and starting on, I guess it's the 20th is the Tuesday. Right? That's the 20th? No, 21st.
Okay.
The 21st, We'll be starting a new segment on Life with Mary Walter with Christine Flowers, who is amazing and wonderful.
Great.
And she and I are huge Real Housewives of New Jersey fans. And the season started up again. They're airing the episodes. So we'll be into episode 3 by then. But we're going to do a short segment on Real Housewives of New Jersey. And we're just going to have some fun with it and just dig into it. May not be your thing, but we're going to have fun. So it's going to be enjoyable, I promise. Whether Real Housewives are your thing or not, our analysis will make it all worthwhile.
Comments on how silly it is are definitely appreciated.
So 100%, 100%. So, all right. So we are out of here. Thank you so much again for joining us. Love you all. Mwah. And we will see you then on the 21st here on Life with Mary. Oh, excuse me, on Mary Walter Radio. Bye.
See ya.
You're listening to Mary Walter.